Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're tackling maybe one of the biggest questions ever. What is the meaning of life?
Yeah, it sounds simple, almost like a cliche sometimes.
But it's incredibly deep, right? Something you might think about late at night or maybe just push away because it feels too huge.
And for this deep dive, our guide is Terry Eagleton's book, The Meaning of Life. A very short introduction. It got some great reviews.
Oh yeah? What do they say?
Things like, it offers warm intellectual pleasure, which I liked, and a charming personal voyage. Also called it a lively starting point for late night debate.
Nice. So our mission today is really to unpack this question. It seems straightforward, but it's so complex. We're using Eagleton's meticulous approach as our map.
And what's great about Eagleton is his tone. He's very self-aware, quite witty.
Right. He knows it's a grand topic, but he prefers the comic over the crazed, as he puts it.
Exactly. He jokes about, like, PhDs on the vaginal system of the flea.
Yeah.
And deliberately avoids that old story about Bertrand Russell and the taxi driver.
Good move. It sets a tone that's serious, definitely, but also really approachable and honestly pretty entertaining.
So right off the bat, he challenges how we even ask the question.
Okay, yeah. How do we even start with what is the meaning of life? Is it like asking, what's the capital of Albania?
Or is it more like asking, what's the taste of geometry?
Exactly. It feels like a totally different kind of question.
It really does. And the philosophical point he raises is, maybe meaning isn't in things themselves.
Right.
Like a cabbage doesn't just have meaning sitting there. It only gets meaning when we humans talk about it, put it into our systems of language and culture.
So we kind of impose meaning or create it through interaction.
Sort of. He suggests we can make life meaningful by how we talk about it, how we frame it. But life itself doesn't possess meaning, like, say, a cloud doesn't possess truth or falsehood. Those are things we attribute in our statements about clouds.
That's a really useful distinction. Meaning isn't inherent, it's relational. And that makes the word what in the question pretty tricky too.
Exactly. Because for a lot of people, especially religious folks, the answer might not be a what at all.
You mean like a who?
Precisely. Like God. Or, and this is provocative, Eagleton points out, for a Nazi, that who might have been Hitler.
Wow. Okay, so the answer could be personal, even ideological, not just abstract.
Right. It immediately shows how varied the answers could be.
And thinking along those lines, it leads to that even bigger question, doesn't it? Why is there anything at all rather than nothing?
Oh, yeah. That's the really big one. The ultimate mystery, maybe.
Get your head spinning.
From a theological viewpoint, God is often seen as the ground of being, not like a maker assembling parts, but the fundamental reason for existence itself. Why something rather than nothing?
That reminds me of Wittgenstein. His line, not how the world is the mystical, but that it is.
The sheer fact of existence, that's the mind-blowing part.
It's like Heidegger's question of the being, right? Yeah. Not just how things work, but that they are, and that we can even perceive them. It's astonishing when you stop to think about it.
Absolutely. Like looking at a painting, it's not just the picture, but the fact that there is a painting, that something was brought into existence.
In Wittgenstein, he was so sharp on how language can trip us up here with these big questions.
Yeah, the real versus phony questions idea.
Right. The grammar makes something sound sensible when maybe it isn't. Like asking, where's the soul in the body? It sounds like asking, where are the kidneys?
Or Eagleton's example, where is my envy versus where is my armpit?
Yeah. The structure makes sense grammatically, but the concepts are totally different. Envy doesn't have a location like an armpit.
And this treating of abstract things as concrete objects reification, it's called, might happen with the word life itself.
How so?
Well, when we say the meaning of life, using life as this single noun, we might unconsciously assume it's one big, unified thing.
Oh, right. But it's incredibly diverse. Birth, death, work, dancing.
Exactly. Just because lots of small things are pink doesn't mean they add up to one giant pink thing. Similarly, parts of life might have meaning, but does life as a whole have one single meaning on top of all that? Maybe not.
That's a good point.
Now, digging into the question like this doesn't just give us the answer, obviously.
No, but it's crucial.
Totally. Eagleton says, questions are worth examining since the nature of a question is important in determining what might count as an answer to it. Asking the right way can unlock whole new ways of thinking.
Like reality is a witness you have to interrogate properly to get a useful answer.
Exactly. We won't just volunteer the information.
So is it possible then that there is a meaning, but maybe we just can't ever know it?
That's a possibility Eagleton considers. He mentions that Henry James story, The Figure in the Carpet.
Oh yeah, where the narrator knows there's a hidden pattern in the author's work but never finds it.
Exactly. And maybe life's like that. There's a design, but it's concealed from us.
Or maybe, Eagleton suggests, not knowing is actually part of the meaning.
Now that's a twist. Thinkers like Schopenhauer, Freud, Nietzsche, they explored this idea that maybe the raw truth of existence is too harsh.
Too terrible to face directly.
Yeah, so we need consoling illusions or necessary fictions just to keep going, like our minds shield us from a reality that would be unbearable.
Wow, that's dark. But it raises a bigger point Eagleton makes.
Yeah.
Why do we always assume that every problem has a solution?
Right. Look at something like terrorism. We want a neat solution, but maybe some problems just persist, evolve, don't have a single fix.
And if we're talking about meaning, maybe we should clarify what we even mean by that word. It's used in so many ways.
Yes, Eagleton breaks this down really well. Think about it. You can say, poisson means fish. That's just definition.
Okay, like in a dictionary.
Then there's, did you mean to strangle him? That's about intention.
Right, purpose behind an action.
Or those clouds mean rain. That's about signifying something, pointing to a likely outcome.
Like a sign or symptom.
And finally, something like lavender-scented bath soap means a lot to him. That's about significance, value, importance.
Got it. Definition, intention, sign, significance. Lots of different flavors of meaning.
Exactly. And distinguishing these helps. For instance, when someone says, my life is meaningless, they don't usually mean it's like random noise, linguistically nonsensical.
They mean it lacks significance versus...
Precisely. Eagleton says it lacks significant N's. Point, substance, purpose, quality, value, and direction. It's an absence of worth or direction, not just intelligibility.
That makes me think of Macbeth, the famous lines.
A tale told by an idiot signifying nothing. Yes, powerful stuff.
It captures that feeling perfectly.
And Eagleton points out there are kind of two kinds of meaninglessness there. One is existential life is just an empty, pointless play.
A farce.
Yeah. The other is semantic life is literally unintelligible, like gibberish. But there's tension, right? If it was truly unintelligible, how could we even judge it as empty or pointless?
Good point. You need some level of understanding to declare something meaningless.
It's like in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. They get the answer 42.
Huh. Yeah, but they don't know the actual question.
Exactly. Or Gertrude Stein on her deathbed asking, what is the answer? Then apparently sighing, but what is the question? It shows the meaning of life isn't just a simple answer waiting for us. It's about understanding the question itself.
And understanding what kind of answer would even count.
And interestingly, Eagleton argues you don't necessarily need a god or a supernatural source to find a significant pattern or narrative in life.
Oh, how so?
Well, think about Marxists. Often atheists, but they see history as having a definite shape, a story class struggle leading to revolution.
Okay, yeah. A pattern, a direction.
Or the old Whig theory of history, seeing it all as a steady march towards freedom and progress. Again, a narrative, but not necessarily divinely authored.
So novelists like George Eliot, even if not religious, could write books like Middlemarch, assuming there's an inherent design or meaning unfolding in human lives and history.
Right, which contrasts with modernists like James Joyce. In Ulysses, he imposes the structure of the Odyssey onto Dublin life.
But it's an imposed order, right? Not necessarily found order.
Exactly. It's a brilliant organizing device. But Eagleton suggests part of the irony is that almost any other myth could have worked too. It's Joyce creating meaning, projecting it onto chaos.
So it busts that myth, that false choice between God-given meaning and total random absurdity.
Yes. The universe might not be consciously designed by a creator, but scientists often talk about the beauty, the elegance, the symmetry in the laws of physics.
There's a kind of meaning in that structure itself.
You could certainly see it that way. It's not random noise. Eagleton suggests that religious fundamentalism often comes from this anxiety, this fear, that if there isn't one big overarching meaning, then there's no meaning at all.
Like a house of cards, take one away and it all collapses.
Yeah. But he points out many thoughtful believers don't see it that way. For them, God's existence might make the world more mysterious, deeper, not just a simple answer sheet. God isn't just solving a puzzle. Maybe God is the depth of the mystery.
Interesting.
And this connects to Kant's idea, purposiveness without purpose.
Right. He applied that to art and nature.
Yes. Think about the human body, your foot, for example. It clearly has a function, a meaning within the system of your body. It helps you walk.
Sure, it serves a purpose.
But did someone design it with that specific purpose in mind, like an engineer designs a tool? Probably not from an evolutionary standpoint. Yet it displays purposiveness. It works as if designed for a purpose, even without an external designer.
So meaning or function can emerge from the system itself?
Exactly. It doesn't always need an outside intention. Which brings us, maybe inevitably, to Schopenhauer.
Not the most cheerful fellow.
Definitely not. His idea is that reality is basically driven by this blind, relentless force he called the will.
The will. What's that?
It's this irrational, striving, cosmic energy that just wants to perpetuate itself. It generates everything, including us, purely for its own blind, futile self-reproduction.
So there's a driving force, but it has no actual goal, no point.
None whatsoever, according to Schopenhauer. It's just endless, pointless striving. A kind of intended meaninglessness, but the intention isn't conscious. It's just the blind drive of the will.
That sounds bleak.
It is, and he believed the will has to trick us. It creates this false consciousness similar to Marx's ideology or Freud's unconscious desires to make us think our lives do have meaning.
Why?
Because if we saw the raw truth, the carnage and sterility of existence driven by this blind will, we'd probably just give up, commit suicide maybe.
So we need illusions to survive.
That was his view. We possess art lest we perish of the truth. Art, beauty, supposed, meaning they're necessary fictions shielding us from an ugly reality.
Grim stuff.
Huh?
Makes you wonder, like Eagleton does, when these big meaning-of-life questions tend to surface most intensely.
Yeah, he suggests it's often in times of major crisis. Think about it. Heidegger's Being and Time comes out after World War I's devastation.
And Sartre's Being and Nothingness during World War II.
Exactly. Existentialism really bloomed in those periods of upheaval and uncertainty.
Which contrasts with earlier times.
Right. In, say, pre-modern societies, people generally seemed less tormented by this specific question. Their roles, beliefs, social structures often provided a built-in sense of purpose. Meaning was often about your function within the larger group or cosmos.
Like Odysseus in Homer seems pretty clear on his goals, his place. Unlike Hamlet.
Hamlet is definitely wrestling with it. So what happened in modernity? Eagleton argues capitalism played a huge role.
How so?
It tended to make life instrumental, focused on power, profit, efficiency. Things became means to an end rather than valuable in themselves. Politics became more about management than, say, virtue. Reason became calculation for self-interest.
And morality became privatized, just a personal thing.
Largely, yeah. Disconnected from the public sphere. And this created a kind of vacuum.
A meaning vacuum.
You could say that. And things like culture, art, religion, even sexuality got drafted in to fill the gap. They had to carry the weight of meaning that public life was shedding.
But that put a huge strain on them, right? Leading to weird distortions?
Eagleton thinks so. Sexuality becomes this exotic obsession. Art gets overinflated, treated like a substitute religion. And religion itself sometimes goes to extremes, ugly forms of fundamentalism or vague, new ageist claptrap. Spirituality becomes either rock hard or soggy, as he puts it.
Huh. Rock hard or soggy. I like that. It explains maybe why you see celebrities grabbing onto things like Kabbalah or Scientology.
Possibly. He suggests it comes from a banal misconception that spirituality must surely be something outlandish and esoteric, rather than something grounded.
And then, of course, commerce jumps in.
Always. This whole symbolic realm gets aggressively colonized by commercial forces. Mass media turns meaning into a product. Even TV evangelists, Eagleton notes, were conning the pious and gullible poor.
So the private sphere, where meaning was supposed to live, gets commercialized too. Yikes.
Which makes it interesting what he says about sport today, particularly football in Britain.
As a source of meaning.
A huge one, he argues. It gives people tribal loyalties, rituals, heroes, battles, beauty, belonging, real human solidarity, and physical immediacy.
Yeah, so he actually says,
It is sport, not religion, which is now the opium of the people.
wow, that's quite a claim.
It highlights this paradox of modernity. Maybe we have too much meaning as well as too little.
How can you have too much?
Because there are so many competing options. Capitalism, science, spirituality, sport, politics, art, all offering different versions of meaning. But this sheer bewildering diversity, Eagleton argues, actually undermines the credibility of any single one.
Like being in a supermarket with too many choices, you end up not trusting any of them.
Something like that. And some people, liberals, postmodernists, maybe actually embrace this fragmentation. They find meaning in the diversity itself. It feels like freedom, liberation from one single narrative.
But Eagleton pushes back on that.
He does. He and many philosophers would say that if the meaning of life exists in any real sense, it can't just be totally different for every single person. It can't just be whatever I decide it is.
So it's not purely subjective, like picking your favorite flavor of ice cream.
Probably not, if it's going to be profound. It might have multiple facets, it might evolve, but it needs some objective grounding, some shared reality beyond just personal whim.
Which really challenges that common idea. Life is what you make it.
It does complicate it, yeah. And it brings us back to the word life. How can everything, birth, clog dancing, suffering, joy, possibly add up to one single meaning? Are we looking for the grand total or some essential core like life is love or life is struggle?
It seems impossible to generalize about all of human life.
It's definitely a challenge. But Eagleton argues you don't need an alien's perspective to comment on humanity. And weirdly, globalization, for all its problems, has kind of forced us to see ourselves as one species facing shared threats.
Like climate change or pandemics.
Exactly. In death, at least, he says wryly, we come together. There's a shared vulnerability, a shared will to survive.
Okay, so if there is some common ground, what are the main contenders for the meaning of life? Eagleton looks at a couple, right?
Yes, the two big ones.
Yeah.
Happiness and love.
Let's start with happiness, the Aristotle view.
Right. Aristotle's eudaimonia, often translated as happiness or well-being. For him, it's the ultimate goal, an end in itself.
But not just feeling cheerful.
No, definitely not just a fleeting mood. It's more like flourishing, a state of soul, a way of living virtuously, actively engaged in a community. It requires practice, good habits, and the right social and political conditions. You can't achieve it plugged into a machine.
So it's active, social, and about realizing your potential.
Exactly. Though we do have to be wary of self-deception, thinking we're happy when we're not, or the whole problem of masochism, finding pleasure in suffering. It's complex.
Yeah. And the other big one is love.
Yes. And again, not just romantic feelings or even affection. He's talking more about agape.
Agape.
Yeah, that selfless, unconditional kind of love. A practice, a way of life. The classic example is loving strangers, acting for the well-being of others without expecting return.
That sometimes seems like it conflicts with personal happiness, though, doesn't it? Like sacrificing your own comfort for someone else, maybe a disabled child, or fighting for justice when it's dangerous?
It can seem that way, but Eagleton suggests maybe they're ultimately compatible.
Oh.
Well, if happiness is about the free flourishing of one's powers and capacities,
Okay, realizing your potential.
and if love, particularly this reciprocal agape, is the condition that allows everyone to flourish best.
Ah, so love creates the environment for happiness.
Right. My flourishing is tied up with yours. We enable each other. In that view, there is no final conflict between them. Love is how we achieve collective flourishing, which includes individual happiness.
That's a powerful way to link them. And it really pushes against that idea that meaning is just something I cook up for myself privately.
Absolutely. Eagleton strongly critiques that conventional wisdom. He argues we are self-determining, yes, but only because we're fundamentally dependent on nature, the world, each other.
We don't create ourselves out of nothing.
Not at all. We're born into a world already full of meanings, languages, histories we didn't choose. We're woven through by the meanings of others. So the idea that I just invent my own meaning from scratch is an illusion.
Real meaning has to include our physical bodies, our connection to the species, our shared world.
Yes. It can't just be an abstract mental construct. He really rejects that pick-and-mix approach to meaning some philosophers suggest. If meaning is real, it must have some shared, universal dimension. It cannot be different for each of us in its entirety.
So after this whole journey, where does Eagleton leave us? What is the takeaway?
Well, it's not a neat answer in a box. He suggests the meaning of life is less a proposition than a practice.
Less something you state, more something you do.
Exactly. It is not an esoteric truth, but a certain form of life. It's not separate from life. It's what makes life worth living. It's about the quality, depth, abundance, and intensity of life.
So the meaning is the living, in a way. Living well, living deeply.
Yes. It reminds me again of Wittgenstein, who said, the solution of the problem of life is seen in the vanishing of this problem.
Meaning, when you understand the question properly, it kind of dissolves. You realize it wasn't the kind of question that has a factual answer like, what's the capital of Albania?
Precisely. The answer is recognizing the nature of the question and maybe shifting focus from finding a secret formula to living a certain way. The meaning of life is life itself, but seen in a certain way.
Seen with depth, maybe, with attention to quality.
Perhaps. And Eagleton brings in that analogy from the Gospel of Matthew. Salvation, or ultimate meaning, isn't some big dramatic revelation.
No.
It's found in really ordinary, prosaic actions. Feeding the hungry, giving drink to the thirsty, welcoming the stranger, visiting the imprisoned.
Simple acts of compassion and connection.
Right. Eternity lies not in a grain of sand, but in a glass of water. The cosmos revolves on comforting the sick. The profound is found in the mundane, the everyday, the relational.
That's beautiful, actually.
And it leads to a final thought. If, as some mystics suggest, eternal life must be here and now, if the present moment is somehow an image of eternity,
Okay.
and if the transcendent, whatever you call it, God being the good, isn't just out there, but also figures as a depth within the world.
A presence within ordinary reality.
Yes, then maybe, just maybe, the very human drive to ask this question, to constantly seek meaning, to look for that figure in the carpet, even if we never fully grasp
That
it.
relentless searching.
Maybe that search, that engagement, that practice of trying to live meaningfully, connecting with others, striving for depth, maybe that itself is the deepest expression of life's value.
So the meaning isn't a destination we arrive at.
Perhaps not. Perhaps it's the journey itself, the dynamic, ongoing act of living meaningfully, unfolding right here, right now, something for you to ponder.